If anyone that's not come before, my name's Chris. I run a recruitment company called the Developer Link. We just specialize in placing software developers in the US and the UK. We started the company about a year ago and started this shortly after as a place for kind of entry level and junior developers to network both with each other, but also get advice from sort of industry leaders. We've had them from like talent teams, we've had them senior engineers and some outside people like Christian as well that really do know what they're doing to be able to give you guys as much help as we possibly can. So what I'm going to do with this one is leave it open at any point. If anyone's got a question for Christian, please do drop it in the chat box and I'll ask them sort of as we go, and I'll open it up again towards the end for any additional questions as well. But for now, Christian, do you want to just tell us a little bit about sort of what you do?
So I'm many things, but right now what I do is I specialize in helping people make a transition from not knowing anything about code, or from being stuck in tutorials, or maybe they finished the bootcamp. I help them transition into tech, and I do that by helping them build a portfolio first of all, and then helping them with the whole interviewing process, preparing the most asked JavaScript questions, I guess, strategies for DMing people on LinkedIn, strategies for being consistent with your job applications, and things of that nature. I think it's a bit difficult to define everything that I do in one sentence, but that's kind of the bulk of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And you obviously mentioned sort of JavaScript questions there. So are you specific to sort of people working on the JavaScript stack?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So my main stack is JavaScript, React, Redux, TypeScript style components, I guess. But in the past, I worked with Node.js, MongoDB, MySQL, and GraphQL as well. But I kind of moved on from that, and I decided to specialize in one area of web dev. Yeah,
for sure. Certainly from our side, I'd say that's probably the most common stack asked for from any company at the moment. Is that why you moved towards that stack, or is that your personal preference?
It's my personal preference. I'm more of a visual person, so I always liked seeing the feedback straight away after writing my code. It's more exciting for me. And then also I decided to move where the market is heading, because if you like jQuery but no one is going to pay you to write jQuery code, then you're pretty useless, so it doesn't really matter what you like. It matters what people would pay you for, if that makes sense. So that's one of the decisions that I had to make. And also I have decided that I want to be mainly focused on frontend, because it's easier to master one thing rather than mastering two things, or mastering two things together, because I talked about this in another video, I guess. But when you try to master one skill, the progression is something like this. But when you have to put the front end and the back end together, the difficulty grows exponentially, because now you need to understand the whole system, how the whole system works together. And because of that, you'll need way more time to actually understand the whole system that you have to build, And in my opinion, I think you can only understand that by having a job. So if I would be a developer, I would choose just one stack. And I guess most of the people here are into frontend. I don't know, I have this guess. If I'm wrong, let me know in the chat. But if you master just one stack, you'll become very proficient with that stack. You'll also become a problem solver, and then you can get hired as a full stack developer and pick up the rest of the missing pieces of the puzzle, and you'll be able to put them together with time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I see that a lot, though. But people, when they're asking us for I guess to fulfill requirements, they're always heavier on front end or back end. Even if they ask for a full stack engineer, that like one is always more important to them. And if we dig into it as a recruiter, they'll quite often be like, we can teach the rest of it. This is the real important stuff to us. So I guess that would be your biggest thing to start with, to pick a side almost.
Exactly. Yeah. I think any full stack developer is like an 80-20 developer. So 80% front end, 20% back end, or 80% back end and 20% front end, you know.
Yeah. And this is actually something I was going to ask as well from Zach. He said, how would you recommend people sort of choosing between like front end and back end? Like how do you go about doing that from having no standpoint or have learned a little bit of everything?
So for example, right now I'm doing a bunch of Excel spreadsheets,
Yeah.
totally random. But if you look into Excel, you'll see that there is a lot of programming in there, you know. But programming Excel spreadsheets, it's more like backend, you know. So if you like looking at that data and understanding that data and manipulating data, then I guess you should be heading towards the backend rather than the front end. But if you like that visual aspect, if you like creating buttons, drop downs, charts, and things of that nature, I think you should be going towards the front end. You know, I guess that's how I would pick it. You know, if you
Yeah.
find it extremely boring to build layouts, then I would not pick that. You know, so
Yeah, for sure.
that's my personal choice. And also I would say, if you can't pick one, just if you can't decide between one of them, just choose one, roll with it for like 3-6 months, see if you start to understand how that technology is supposed to work, and then you can make a decision on a more how can I say informed decision about what you want to continue with, you know. But don't get stuck on what should I choose, just choose something and then you'll figure it out later.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess that's one of the whole things about development, right? Like the stuff that you were teaching now didn't exist a few years ago, or it was different frameworks and all that kind of stuff. So he said getting too hung up on the exact like framework and what you're working on, I guess would be a mistake, right? You just need to get proficient with something and then you can transition to other stuff as needed.
Exactly, yeah. I'm
Fantastic.
mostly teaching like the very basics of things. I'm not teaching fancy stuff. I'm not teaching the latest and greatest. Actually, I'm teaching very basic stuff, but I'm asking people to do the basic stuff over and over again until they get bored of it, and then they will be able to pick up other skills in the meantime, you know.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the film Coach Carter?
No, I didn't.
It's about a basketball coach, and he takes over a struggling basketball team, and very much just makes them run and run and run and run before actually thinking about anything else. Like you said, the real basics and getting very good at one thing to start with before moving on to something else.
Exactly. Like Mate is here, and I think he's. I have like a few challenges with React, and I think he's a challenge 7, and they are all the same thing, but in different way. There is a different perspective to the same thing, just because I want to make sure that they actually understand the real basic stuff. Because if you don't get the basics, you won't be able to do the cool shit. And sorry for
Yeah.
dropping the bad word in there, you know.
Absolutely fine. But I guess, is that one of the biggest issues that you see, sort of people trying to run before they can walk? Or
Yeah, so actually this is one of the points that I'm going to bring up. So um, people are too concerned with being creative, you know, in the beginning. You know, everyone, like, I guess everyone here is into programming because they love building stuff and they love the creativity aspect of it, right? But what most juniors fail to see, or like aspiring juniors, is that you don't have to be creative in the beginning, and you cannot be creative in the beginning. And I bought this course on building a personal brand, and this guy was saying, like, if you look at my photos, you'll try to replicate them and then you'll fail at it miserably. Why? Because I've been doing this for the past 5 years. What you have to do is you have to focus on the basics, and once those basics are second nature to you, then you can start to freestyle. Okay. And that's why I hate so much seeing on the internet things like find a project that you love, come up with a project idea, come up with this. This is not your job as a junior developer. Okay. Even if you get your first job, you don't have to be creative. You just have to solve bugs. You have to implement features that someone else is going to tell you to implement. You
yeah,
don't need to come up with an app idea, you know. So that's one of the biggest things that are holding people behind, you know, and that's why this whole journey takes so long, because People are asking from a junior developer to be the entrepreneur, the guy who comes up with the idea, the senior developer who is fixing their code, the designer, all these jobs that are unrelated to the junior dev job, if that makes sense. So that's the biggest issue, you know, creativity. You don't have to be creative, and you shouldn't be creative in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess how do people go about, like, not necessarily, but I guess it kind of is stifling that creativity? How do they focus on what the sort of basics are?
In terms of JavaScript or React or
just in general, you said obviously that's the biggest thing that people need to overcome, is that they don't need to be creative, and that's the biggest thing that people want to do. So what should they be focusing on to start with?
I don't know how to say this without plugging in my stuff, you know, because that's pretty difficult. But the way I do it, the way I take people through this process is that depending on where they are, you know, but assuming they kind of know the basics of programming, they know functions, they know data structures, they know all these things, and then they're like, okay, what should I build next? You know, now that I have all this information and all these skills. Well, I give them a few applications, you know, the basic ones, the to-do app, the calculator, the Pomodoro. Those applications are really basics, but they will teach you a lot about manipulating data. Even if you're on the front end or on the back end, you still need to learn how to manipulate data. So that's the first thing, understanding that everything that you see on a screen, it's data. So that's one of the biggest things that you have to grasp, understanding data. Then you get into React. You need to understand why React is so cool. If you look at the React documentation and you don't say, wow, this is amazing, then that means you're not ready for React. So then it means you have to learn more about your data structures. You need to know more about functions or whatever event listeners you have in JavaScript, you know, in the core language. And then once you are tired of that, then you can go back to React, and you'll have to say, wow, this is so cool, you know. When you get there, again, you go over the same thing, understanding data structures, understanding how to react to a user's input when the user operates with the application. All these things they have to build with time, you know, but I cannot really give you specific kind of challenges, you know, because they are very contextual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, it's going to depend on the person and everything like that. Someone's actually just said that they chose front end in exactly the same way, and they said that they've been working with it and never got bored of it. So that's obviously good to know.
Yeah, you have to even if you suck in the beginning at something, just accept that you're gonna suck, you know, accept it for like 6-9 months and just roll with it. You know, you always have to be curious, excited, you know, and with time you'll become passionate, you know. So that's one of the things that I think they are very important for a junior dev.
For sure. Quite a specific question here from Burak. He said, as you mentioned, style components as part of the tech stack, what do you think about the new version of Material UI?
I don't use any frameworks. I have used in the past AntDB, no, AntDesign. Yeah, that's the one that I used. I think I used Semantic UI a few years ago, but I prefer to not use any frameworks in general. And I don't like Material UI. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Same as Bootstrap. Yeah, it's an absolutely terrible CSS library. Yeah.
So how did you get into what you're doing now? Obviously, you're running this thing, helping sort of junior engineers like these guys. Like, what was sort of your journey to get here?
Well, I saw a need in the market. I saw a problem that has to be solved. I looked into it and I saw that people are struggling with the exact same thing that I was struggling a few years ago. And then I started to put together the pieces of the puzzle. I was working with people one-on-one. I had results with that. And then I started to have like a group of people. And then I was giving them instructions. And then they were coming up with questions. I was answering those questions, and that's how I built the entire thing, you know. But the main force was seeing that there is a need, there is a problem, I have to fix it. I fixed it, it works well. And now it's just about iterating and making it 1% better whenever I realize there is something to be done. It's same as software development, you know.
Fantastic. And I think that's one of the reasons that I started this group, and and one of the biggest questions that always comes up is that 0 to 2 years experience. Like how do you get the first job when people are asking for people with experience all of the time? Like that, I think that's always the biggest thing, at that first hurdle to get from into that first role. And I think that's the biggest thing that people tend to struggle with, right? So it's a huge issue, like when people are asking for 2-3 years experience for a junior dev, because like you said, that's not what a junior dev is, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a big problem, but it makes sense a lot. You know, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm on the side of the employers actually with this, you know. Can I actually share with you some examples? Is that possible?
Yeah, for sure. You should be able to share your screen.
Let me see. So the first thing that I'm concerned when someone says that is I'm asking myself, okay, because I'm talking with a lot of people, you know, like a lot. I think I had at least 1,000 conversations with junior devs, okay? And then when you talk to them and you actually believe that they are good, you know, you actually believe that they are good, right? And then, okay, if this person is so confident and this person knows all these technologies, why can't they get hired? So that's one of the questions that I'm asking myself, right? Let me just hide my stuff here. But then it all boils down to being so good that people will pay you, right? That's what it boils down to. Because if you're not good, then like no one is gonna fork money for what you have, right? So I want to show you, for example, this is this here on the left is one of my students' portfolio, right? And this is the app that everyone wants to build in my program, right? What do you think of this app on the left? If you would see it as a recruiter.
Yeah, it looks good.
Looks good, right?
Yeah.
And this is an application from another junior developer that finished a bootcamp. What do you think of this?
Yeah, not so good.
Not so good, right? So this is like the main problem with junior devs. They have like a very high ego, like a very big ego. They think they know a lot of things, but then they show up with this.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, would you hire yourself with the skill set that you have, with the things that you are presenting yourself with? Because junior devs are not competing with other junior devs. They're competing with people that have 5 years of experience, 10 years of experience, right? They're competing with me, right? If there is a job available and I apply to it, and then 500 other juniors will apply to it, I'm going to get a job.
Yeah.
You know, so that's their competition. And we are working in an environment where people want skilled people. Otherwise, you're not worth the money. You are a big risk, and you are a recruiter, right?
Yeah.
And you are not getting paid if that person is not staying in the role for 3 months.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it like that for you? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Like people genuinely, like, one of the reasons I started this, people don't pay me for junior developers. Like they tend to want more experienced people if they're going to pay for it. And they feel like they can find junior developers themselves.
And even in my business, right? I had a guy that wanted to help me for free to do different things for me. And I was thinking, I don't want to risk money or my reputation with working with this guy. He has no experience. He wants to gain it, but I don't want to do that. I prefer to pay someone more money that has more experience to help me out with my stuff, you know? And I guess as much as we want employers to empathize with the juniors, we also have to tell juniors to empathize with the employers and with the recruiters. You know, this is a big point that no one is really bringing up, you know?
Yeah.
So what can you do, right? What can you do? You have to get as good as possible as good as possible, as good as humanly possible at your craft. If you are focused on the front end and you say passionate about building good looking UIs, and all you have is that chart on the right, then you're not walking the walk. And I mean, you are talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's one thing. Then another thing that I've noticed is that people don't keep track of how many job applications they have, right? You should apply for, I've seen this on while my students were applying, and then I saw on LinkedIn, and I saw that the average is 300 job applications before you land a job.
Yeah.
Right. So that means you have to apply for 10 jobs per day. That's already something that's measurable. You cannot control if the recruiter is going to answer to your message or if the recruiter is going to call you, but you can measure and you can apply for 10 jobs per day. You can also message someone. We can message one person per day. You can also control how your portfolio looks like. You can control all those things. So control the controllable and don't worry about the things that you can't fix yourself, you know.
For sure. And I think like you said, like a lot of it with the adverts for junior developers, if someone is genuinely looking for someone with 2 to 3 years experience, that's what they're looking for, right? Like it's not an issue. More the issue is the fact that they're calling it a junior developer, like whereas it's more like a mid is what they need. But you see it at the other end as well with startups that want an engineering director or a VP of engineering, but it's almost 95% coding. It's like they're titling it completely the wrong thing, which is more the issue than what the company actually needs and why people are getting rejected.
Yeah. It's difficult to put labels nowadays on things, right?
Yeah, for sure. I guess from your experience, are there any other like common small mistakes that you see people making that would be easily actionable for everyone here, whether it's in their job, obviously short of signing up to be one of your students, which I'm sure would help a lot. Like, is there anything else that someone could do as a small change that they could affect pretty quickly that you see as quite a common thing?
So the first thing is don't try to become a full stack developer. That's the first thing that I'm gonna mention here. Like, you can try to land a full stack dev job, that's fine, but don't aim to learn the full stack dev role. I would say consistency with building one single thing rather than having 15 small applications. Build one application and take 3 months to build that application, you know, because that's going to bring you experience. Okay, that's what people want, experience. Because when you build a big application, you'll run into a lot of issues that you'll have to learn how to fix, and that's going to bring you those experience gains that you need, you know, because if you build 5 to-do apps with Node.js, Express, Mongo, React, and Redux, that's going to teach you how to set up a boilerplate. But if you build a very, very complicated app, I don't know what exactly to give you as an example, but if you build a more complicated application, you need to start to worry about how you structure your application, how you structure your files, have naming conventions that you follow in your code, be consistent with the way you're writing your code. Find there is a naming cheat sheet on GitHub. I forgot the name, but just find the naming cheat sheet and make sure that your variables are respecting that naming cheat sheet. Learn how to use Git correctly. Use branches, you know, for every single feature that you want to add to your application. You know, all these things are adding a lot of points, you know. And they are very small things, right? The 1%, but you keep adding those 1%, and they will make a huge difference in your career.
For sure. Why do you think people go for like you said, multiple sort of smaller applications? Is it because they're easier to do, or is it because they're faster to complete and they've got something out there quickly for people to see?
Because I don't know. I think they don't know what to do. That's the first thing. And that goes back to the idea that you're a junior developer, right? You don't know what to do. You just need to receive tasks and you just have to work on those tasks. And it goes against the idea of not being creative. You don't have to be creative, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's the main reason, but it's mostly that they don't have a clue of, there is no clear path, for them. So they are just trying things,
Yeah, for sure. And Burak, just I think you answered a few of these previously, but you said what would make you think from like a React project, like what would be this guy is more of a mid-level than and not a junior? Like what kind of boxes are they sort of ticking?
I mean, if you are going for a junior role, you're a junior, bro. Like
Yeah.
they will see in 5 minutes. They will see in 5 minutes that you are a junior. Even with that application that I just showed you, they will see in 5 minutes that my student is a junior, but you are a more qualified junior, I guess, but you are still a junior. You cannot skip from junior to mid by building one of these apps that I showed you. And mainly because you are missing something, you miss pressure, okay? And pressure means the pressure of getting fired if you don't deliver. With me, you don't have that. You know what I mean? With a bootcamp, you don't have that. By being self-taught, you don't have that. You never had the pressure of actually delivering something. And when you have that pressure and when you have all these peers around you that they teach you things and you learn from them, that's how you grow exponentially. And you cannot make the transition from junior to mid without having a junior job, So I hope that
there's only, like you said, without actually having a role, there's only so much you can do without experience, right? You can just get as good as possible at the junior tasks, as you say.
I guess the only thing that you could do, I guess, is if you are some sort of superhero and you have some sort of mentor that you learn from, and then you build a product and then you release that product, that would be a way to kind of skip the junior level.
Yeah.
But then if you do that, why would you want to be a developer? You can just be a business owner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
Only if the product fails, then you can go and be a junior mid-level dev.
Yeah. And I think, like you were saying, it's not necessarily like looking at a project and being like, is this guy a mid-level or a junior? It's just like, how good of a junior are they, right? And it's all the things that you were saying, they're extra little boxes that people can tick by doing a more complex application and spending longer on it, as opposed to building 5 or 6 of the same thing. It's one thing that's slightly more complex and just adding extra little bits, I guess.
Exactly. And if I show you a project, you will think I'm a junior, because if I'm a mid-level developer or a senior developer, I don't need to show you any project. I just show you where I worked at. I'm not building projects in my spare time. So if you show me a project, that means you're a junior.
Yeah.
So you can't,
that's a good point. Your project would be the last company that you worked at, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a website, but it's just for my business, but I don't have a personal website where I put to-do apps and weather apps, to show people that I'm coding in my spare time, so.
For sure. So I've got a question from Anja. She said, thanks for the sort of clarification. She said she was getting a bit confused between the talk between full stack. She says she prefers backend development, which she's come to realize after building her previous project. However, she's glad she does have experience with styling as well. So do you think it's okay to aim for a straight backend developer role, or should she start off with front end?
Honestly, I've never had a backend developer role. And I don't know how that works. I have no idea how that works, But in her case, I would just aim for a full stack focused on backend role.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it works for people that are outside front end. If they're doing Python or Android or iOS, I don't know how it works for them, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah, but
if she likes that,
said,
then
I think that's a good sign, right? It should be a case of commit to that and go and work on projects that showcase sort of those skills and apply for those types of positions. So we said one of the questions before was, how do you figure out which way to go? Like, sounds like you already have figured out which way to go, and like focus on it for 3-6 months, however long it is, and see if you can improve in that area.
Yeah, another thing with backend development, I don't know what kind of projects should you build for that, so that's a complicated thing. But I would still say maybe learn a bit of front end, just so you can like you build your backend, you build your server and your database, and then you'll provide some data through that API. So I guess if you can build like a small front-end app that can query that data and display it, I guess that would be pretty helpful. I don't know exactly how it works specifically for backend guys though.
Well, she just said she managed to build a project from sort of back end to front end, and it ended up landing her current job as a digital product designer. So I guess you then have to look at where do you sort of go from there, and if that's what you enjoy, then obviously focus on it. Then
yeah, I mean, if you like that, then do what you like, you know. You have to do what you like, otherwise you'll hate it. And you can't learn, because when the best type of learning is when you are relaxed, you know. If you are desperate to land a dev job tomorrow, you're never gonna be able to learn, because if you are relaxed and inspired, you can be creative, you know. Creative in the sense of like, let me learn more, let me be more curious, you know. You have to be always positive in this thing. But if you have to hustle to keep your lights on in the fridge, then it's going to be very difficult for you to actually land that job. And that's why I don't really encourage people to quit their jobs to learn web dev at home, you know, because they will be like pressured by time way too much.
Bills and finances, and there'd be deadlines and all that kind of stuff. No, for sure. So next question here from Zach. He said, what would be sort of a learning roadmap for a beginner developer?
So like front end. Yeah, so front end, you have to start with HTML and CSS. Free Code Camp is a pretty good resource for that. I was using it for my students, for the complete beginners, for a while now. Now I'm building my own stuff based on the things that I've seen them struggling with. Then you get into JavaScript, still the same place. Either Free Code Camp or Code Academy is pretty good for that. I'm currently building that for myself, so I don't know exactly how that will work. But then once you're done with that, I guess once you understand the basic of HTML and CSS and the basics of JavaScript, you should focus a lot on seeing the data on the screen. So when you look at Facebook, do you see posts, or do you see an array of objects? You know, when you open LinkedIn and you see the comment section, do you see comment boxes, or do you see an array of comment objects, you know, and so on and so forth? So you have to start seeing the data. And then once you have that practice, once you start to see the booleans, the numbers that are changing as you are interacting with the web page, that's when it's time for you to start building your basic apps that I've mentioned before, the to-do app, the calculator, what was the other one? The Pomodoro. Once you have those things, then you can move into learning React and getting a deeper understanding into how data is actually being used in web applications.
For sure. So here's one from Adrian. He said, how would you suggest he sort of prepares his LinkedIn to look ready for sort of recruiters and I guess sort of hiring managers as well? Is there anything that particular that you recommend people putting on there?
So I feel like LinkedIn is a bit more of it's the last thing that you should be worried about, but I guess you should have a lot of keywords everywhere you can. Don't put in aspiring developer, because no one is searching for aspiring developers. You know, like do yourself a favor and type in React developer, you know, or JavaScript and React developer, something like that. The same in your skill sections. If you go on jobs, in the job section on LinkedIn, you'll see the skills that people require from a developer. So start to fill in those skills in your skill section. Try to have as many keywords on your profile as possible. Drop the junior developer shouldn't exist anywhere on your website, on your LinkedIn profile, because you are automatically disqualified, you know. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think also from my side, like having searched for both juniors and seniors myself, like also don't lie. because I've had it a lot of the
Don't
time
lie,
where
don't lie, but don't mention it.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, of course. But I've had multiple people apply to, say, for example, I'm looking for like a senior Android engineer. I'll put the filter on of like, do you have a minimum of 3 years Android experience? People will say, yes, I have 7, and then you look at it and they've just graduated from a code boot camp. So unless they mean that they've been using an Android phone for 7 years and they've got around it that way, like it's
Yeah,
automatically I'm like, right, this person's not for me. Like, but whereas if they were like, no, however, and had sent me a message being like, I'm actually looking for junior positions, do you have anything? I'd be like, oh, this seems like a good person. Whereas as soon as I get someone that's just lied about something, I'm like, right, like done, on to the next person. So, but I
yeah,
completely get what you're saying as well.
don't lie, but make it easier for yourself to be discovered, right? So if you get discovered and you have a cool portfolio, is the recruiter is gonna say, okay, this person doesn't have experience, but this portfolio looks cool. Let me have a 2-minute conversation with this person,
Yeah, you have to realize as well, from a recruitment point of view, like some of these roles, they're so hard to fill with more senior people. You need to, like Christian said, you need to be able to put yourself in a position where you can be discovered by some of these companies, because a lot of them are crying out for 5, 10, 15 people, and we can't find 1 to 2 senior people a week to send over to them. So if you can be discovered by them and you've got a good portfolio, then you've got every chance of getting yourself an interview.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I got my job and how my students got jobs. They were looking for senior people. They couldn't find them. They are good enough. We're gonna save some cash and we're gonna fill in this role, because a business that doesn't have a developer is losing money every day, right?
Yeah.
Or their developers are being burnt out because they have to work on too many things at once, right? So that's another side of the story that no one knows about, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the thing. No one calls me and goes, right, we're going to need a developer in 3 months' time. Let's start recruiting now, just in case it takes us 3 months to find someone. They're always
Yeah.
like, we needed someone. This has been signed off last week. So we already, like you said, their team's already under pressure. They already have the spot open. And once it goes 2, 4, 6 weeks, they then start getting desperate and reaching out to all sorts of recruiters. If you can solve that problem, like you have to have the minimum skills. But like you said, if you're half as good as what they needed, but you're half the price, like they're going to look at that from a business perspective, right? If you can still deliver against what they need.
Yeah. And as a junior, you're not hired for your skill set, you're hired for your potential, right?
Yeah.
And then if you already have a bit of potential and you seem promising, they'll be like, okay, let's do it, let's give it a shot.
I can't remember whether it was you or someone else I saw post earlier today. They literally said that no one is searching for someone with 3 years experience. They're searching for someone that can solve the problems that they need solving, right? So if you can prove that, like no one's literally like they have to have 3 years of experience. They have to be able to solve their problems.
Yeah, my first role was actually pretty funny, right? So I applied to hundreds of jobs, right? And then this guy calls me, hey, do you like fish? I was like, yeah, I fucking love fish. And then the company that I went to take the test for was they were working in fish farming AI. So what I had to do was I had to convert a React application to a React and Redux application.
Yeah.
It took me 4, 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. I don't remember. I remember everyone left the office by the time I finished that, and they never called me, right? But I had everyone's phone numbers, so I kept calling them, messaging them, all these things, And apparently they hired another guy instead of me, and the guy had 2 years of experience. And if you know anything about Redux, he created the Redux store for each route of the application. If you know anything about Redux, that's not how you have to do it. So after me being so persistent and seeing that this guy has 2 years of experience and has no idea about what to do, they just hired me.
Yeah.
So if you have 2 years of experience, but you are terrible, that it doesn't matter,
Yeah, no, for sure. So here's another question from Zach. So what's the right sequence to follow when learning languages, frameworks, and libraries?
First, you have to struggle with the language. you need to do the hard work with it. And then when you start to feel limited by the actual language, then you can start researching into a library like React, or I guess there's Angular, and then there is Vue. You have to pick one. I would pick one, the one that's most popular. And the reason why I do that is because if I have 10 jobs for Angular and 100 for React, the chances of me getting a React job are way higher than getting an Angular job. Okay, so you always have to be like that, even if you like Vue because it's not made by Facebook. That's gonna limit your success chances or opportunities, right?
Yeah.
That's how I would choose it, but I have to be limited by the core language first. Then I'm picking a library like React. Then once I'm getting limited by React, then I'm going to look into state management, and I'm going to find out about Redux, and then so on and so forth. At some point you'll be like, okay, I'm bored of Frontend. When you say that, that means you are ready to get a job or start learning some backend stuff as well. That's how I see the whole process for a junior.
Yeah, for sure. And I think similar to what you just said then, like a lot of what companies decide to, like what they decide to work on and what they decide to look for is centered around partially what they want to be working on, but it's also the talent pool. So like people, if everyone is learning React, all companies are looking for React because that's what everyone wants to be working on. I have some companies with some strange stacks that will change what they're looking for depending on the talent pool. So I think, like you said, if there's more people searching for that out there, focusing on that framework is definitely the best way to go.
Yeah, you have to do what the market wants.
Yeah, for sure. So Adrian said, how much does it count to have a diploma or certificate in order to get a job without any commercial experience?
I don't think it matters at all, because I can be obese and get a personal trainer certificate. That's not gonna qualify me as a personal trainer, or no one is gonna hire me as a personal trainer. So I guess it's the same thing. If you have a certificate but you can't do the job, then that certificate is maybe it's gonna open the door for you, but then if you open your mouth and you don't know what you're talking about, you'll be sent away straight away.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only thing is, like, for some larger companies, they're still stuck in their ways and want like a computer science degree or something like that. But it's becoming less and less common. Like, no one wants a specific certificate from a specific boot camp or like a Udemy course or like anything like that. They just want people that can do the job. And some people love the fact that people have done boot camps because it can show the amount that you can learn in such a short amount of time. But like, they're not looking for a specific, like you said, sort of certificate or anything like that. They're looking for the experience and looking at portfolios and seeing what they can actually do with the knowledge that they've got. And another one here from Adrian, he said, have you got any more examples of sort of portfolio projects, or sort of like what kind of would be good in a portfolio and what is not good?
I have another one, still from my students, so I'm just plugging in my stuff then.
That'd be great.
Let's see. This one is still work in progress, but I have it here on board. Let's see.
And just whilst he's pulling that up, everyone, we're going to do about another sort of 10-15 minutes. So if you've got any additional questions for Christian, just drop them in the chat as we're going through this, and we'll read them out.
Yeah, so this is another application. Actually, I haven't finished showing you this one, right? So this one has multiple features. Like, you can see different data for like different durations of time. Then you can search for, then you can look at a specific coin and see more details about this, right? So you can search for something. Let's say if you search for Bitcoin, is pretty useless because I'm here already. But yeah, this application does a bunch of things, right? I can also save.
What is this written in?
React and Redux and style components. Yeah. So this is kind of this application. Then the second one that they are building is this one, which is like a photo application. So here you see like the latest photos from Unsplash. You can see, for example, pictures from a specific user. You can open this picture. You can save it. Now it's saved. You can close it. Something wrong here? Yes. Then you can look at it and see it from here. You can search for different things. So there are a lot of things that are happening, a lot of pages, a lot of complications, a lot of features added, and a lot of pieces of state that talk to each other. You know, I can't really do this application justice in like 2-3 minutes. And if someone is trying to replicate this, it's going to be very difficult for them because they don't understand the whole system, you know. But these two are the ones that my students are rolling in with. Then I have a bunch of bad applications because I like to collect them, and you know, it's good content for YouTube. People are very visual, and then when they see, let me see, I have another one here. Where is it? Let's see. This one is my favorite. Yeah. Mainly because it takes ages to load. So pro tip, don't use Heroku to deploy our applications because it takes ages for it to load. And by the time so like a recruiter is clicking your link to see your amazing portfolio, and it takes 15-20 seconds to open, then you are already gone.
Yeah, I'd already have assumed this didn't work by now.
So I know it works, but the server has to start up, you know. And that's another thing that juniors don't take in consideration, that recruiters are not having time to waste, you know. So this is another one. This is one of my favorite portfolios. Deployed app. Yeah, this is another bootcamp creation that I absolutely love. Let's say new workout. Resistance. Let me see. I don't want to. One second, because sometimes my inputs are auto-filled and there are issues in there. So yeah, you add your numbers in here, you add the exercise, then you complete it. This is not amazing, you know. It doesn't make me say like, whoa, I really want to hire this person. Yeah, they are so passionate about web development, you know.
Yeah, even to me, like you said, I'm not overly technical, but from my point of view, it's probably going to be the same as a lot of internal recruiters at companies and the people that are kind of looking at your application first. Like this screams like old and very basic.
Exactly.
Whereas like
that's why I say
the ones that you have, like that photo one looks like Instagram, like
exactly,
and the other one looks like a sort of trading website. They look good, and I think that's a lot of what it's about for front end, right?
So let me show you another important thing, because I mentioned Git and GitHub, right? If I do this and then I move my ugly face down, that's my favorite car, by the way. Let's see. I'm gonna go here. Let me just stop this. I'm the most non-technical person, bro. So that's how I'm presenting myself. Anyway, so talking about Git and GitHub, right? Again, if you look here, you see he only has one branch, main, right? If I open this, there's a bunch of branches. That means this guy on the right knows how to work with Git. Yeah. Right? This is a very important skill. Probably, you know, as a recruiter, they all say, hey, we need someone that knows how to work with Git, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is this person qualified to work with Git, or this person here?
Yeah, you're right.
You know, then if I go to pull requests, and if I go here to pull request, and a PR is a very standard thing, right? It means that you've finished a feature, then you ask someone to review your code and make sure that the way you wrote it is proper, right? And then once it's done, you can merge that branch into develop, master, or whatever it's called. Yeah. Now, as you can see here, there are 0 PRs closed. and here there are 13, right? So actually I had an employer saying, I liked your project mainly because you had a bunch of PRs and you had code reviews, because people can
Yeah.
check that, right? So again, bonus points, 1% there, 1% there. All these things are adding up, you know, and I don't want to sell my stuff, but it's I'm not doing anything outside what I would do at work, you know.
Yeah.
That's
No, I think you're completely right. And even some of the companies that I work with that take on all manners of levels of developers, if they're more junior that they're looking at, if they're doing some sort of technical test or take home test or something like that, they're looking for people that go and do the extra, because they're saying the more junior this person is, the more they're not necessarily expecting, but the more they want someone to go above and beyond. And if you can show that from the start, from your portfolio and everything like that, that's the way to go, right?
exactly.
For sure. Well, we're literally coming up to the end of the hour. So where can everyone find your stuff if they wanna find you on sort of YouTube, and where's the best sort of channels and stuff for you?
So I guess on YouTube, they can search for my name. So not Boring Christian, but Christian Florea. I can drop my link in the chat and then you can maybe plug it in.
That'd be awesome.
And my YouTube is the best, my platform, because on LinkedIn, no one loves me because I'm talking trash all the time. So on YouTube, I'm more free. They people like me more there. They can see my personality properly.
I love that. Well, no, I really appreciate that. I hope people got some useful answers there. And I guess if anyone does have questions, is LinkedIn the best place for them to sort of reach out to you?
I guess so. Yeah, LinkedIn would be the best place to reach out to me if they want to.
Okay.
But I'm mostly on YouTube, you know. But LinkedIn is a good place as well, you know.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Christian. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed that, and yeah, love the sort of comment and the help you got there. Thanks everyone else for joining. Our next one's going to be in a couple of weeks. I've got a few people talking specifically about sort of interviewing as a junior and stuff like that. So that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. For now, thanks all for joining, and Christian, really appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks everyone for being here.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.